Deputy Colm Keaveney.
Thank you, Lasker Hurlock. I read with some interest this morning the Minister's contribution to this debate, and I have to confess that even after everything that has happened since 2011, I'm surprised how condescending and how out of touch the Minister's speech, the tone of it, and some of the nuanced language here this afternoon around certain aspects as social welfare fraud. And I found that clearly there is an increasing detachment with this government with respect to the reality of people's lives. The Minister clearly understanding that changes she proposes to make to the payments of lone parent families will mainly impact on women. I quote, this is what she said: "As a woman, I simply do not understand why that receiving welfare payments will be a more attractive option than becoming involved in education or training." See, Minister, many lone parents, all of them who come to me concerned, all of them are women. They're coming to me and they're contacting our offices and they are in distress about Labour's proposed changes with respect to the lone parent family. And they're mystified at how the Minister seems to either have ignored the concerns of these women, has deliberately ignored their concerns, but in particular, the childcare costs. And not one welfare dependency it has been discussed in this House today from a government perspective, without actually dealing with the main block here. And we can talk about the training, we can talk about the employment opportunities, but we haven't heard once any talk about the Scandinavian model of childcare that has hundreds of women attending the offices of deputies in this Dáil about the impending changes to lone parents. And of course, once upon a time, the Minister, she would recall a different reality for women on low incomes, because she declared in 2012 that she was going to introduce the Scandinavian style of childcare. And we've had 3 successive, austere, regressive budgets, and we still see a rarefied attitude in government about the whole area of childcare. And, Leskin Corla, childcare costs remain to be the elephant in the room of this debate in terms of enabling women to, and it is primarily women, to engage in employment, training or education. Last week, my colleague Robert Troy recently presented a roadmap to the adequate childcare needs of families in this country. And yes, it was expensive. And no one believes that it can be delivered as a yellow pack proposal. But we have to start moving on this if these are going to be sustainable changes. I wonder, DC Laskin Corla, did the Minister or her colleagues really believe that the Scandinavian style of childcare she promised would ever be delivered? And I doubt that. I got my answer to that in today's Irish Times, because the headline of it says, "Recovery allows income tax cuts." And that's the core of this issue, Laskin Corla, because this is a government not interested in extending state services into childcare. It is only interested in protecting existing services or running them down in order to prioritise tax cuts for the well-off. And yes, some government deputies would say to themselves that they are social democrats. Cutting tax, cutting services. And yet we have not had one proposal with respect to how we're going to enable women to re-engage, retrain, reskill and get back into the workforce. So I'd like to know here today, Leskin Corla, what is Joan Burton's problem with women? Of the 38 cuts that she has orchestrated over the course of the last 4 years, changes, reductions in entitlements, totalling €1.4 billion, all focused on low-income families. 8 of those cuts, totalling €500 million, almost a third of the total, have been targeted predominantly on women. The figure doesn't include, of course, the vicious attack on maternity payments brought in by this government. Lone parents, again, predominantly women, are the main target of this bill, and it's beyond understanding how anyone concerned with poverty rates in this country, deprivation on this cohort in society, could actually vote these measures today. Minister, since 2012, the consistent poverty rate amongst lone parent families has increased from 17.4% to 23%, and the deprivation rate now stands at 63%. The cuts that the Minister has now imposed have contributed to this increase. The measures she now proposes in the absence of childcare are going to have a devastating consequence, and I'd ask the Minister to not go ahead with this proposal until we are very clear about front-loading investment into childcare in this country. Yesterday, Deputy Willie O'Dea outlined to the Minister the monetary effect of her proposals and what are the consequences for the domestic circumstances of the most vulnerable people in our society. And I would urge the Minister to take heed of his statement on the simple mathematic fact that the situation that is being advised to the committee would be radically amended. See, Lascan Corda, the Minister's assumptions explicitly stated in her contribution yesterday that lone parents can simply increase their working hours at will is simply the evidence of the detachment that exists and the lack of understanding of the reality of the lives of those affected. As I said yesterday during the debate on the family home repossession, Lascan Corda, I have some sense that I'm looking across the chamber at a government that no longer sees ordinary people, their families, the decisions that those families have to take, their domestic circumstances. We're dealing with statistics. They see euros, they see cents, they see percentages, they see pluses and they see minuses, but they fail actually to see any evidence or an interest in the reality of what is actually occurring in the lives of ordinary people. And I'd urge the government to listen to the representative organisations who have spoken about issues in this area. And contrary to the Minister's claim yesterday that these groups don't feel that they have had proper consultation, stakeholder group of One Family, the One Family organisation, says that the issue relating to one parents, they've known about it since 2012, it's been poorly planned, and it's been implemented with grave concerns for the parents of this country. And they say they find it quite astonishing that the research in relation to the activation amongst lone parents will only be available in June. It's only been commissioned now, and particularly 39,000 lone parents are due to be activated on the 2nd of July. The major concern for one-parent families is the regard that relates to the lack of planning, lack of support, the lack of information, the lack of responsibility taken by the Department of Social Protection in this area. One-parent family were not alone. Along with them came Spark, the single parents acting for rights of children. They state that childcare is one of the main barriers to entering the labour force. Two-parent families spend 34% of their total income on childcare. Two-parent families spend 34% of their total income on childcare. For a lone-parent family, that can go up to 60%. 60% of the total income for a lone-parent family, their net income from a one-parent family to provide for childcare. So, Minister, we need affordable childcare. It needs to be accessible. It needs to have a quality. It needs to be underpinned with a sense of urgency in order for these women, mainly women, to return to the workplace. Because, Minister, all the stakeholders observe one thing, is that lone parent families are already amongst the poorest in society and are not in position to take the impact of this cut. FLAC, Free Legal Aid, called for the Minister to carry out a social impact analysis of the bill. Minister, there have been debates in this House on the need for equality proofing. Both you and I have consistently agreed in the past about the need to equality, and I welcome any proposals with respect that may emerge in the near future in that respect. But Minister, there needs to be immediately an assessment on the equality impact of this initiative. Because, Minister, from time to time, we engage in a lot of rhetoric in this House. If there's ever been the need to equality-proof a piece of legislation in this country, it is the impact of the changes that are being proposed for this forthcoming summer on one-parent families. I urge you, Minister, let's get down to it. Let's put the rhetoric to one side, let's listen to FLAC and carry out that analysis. This is a retrograde, austere initiative. It's going to affect the most vulnerable people in society, people who are holding on by their thread. And I'd ask you, Minister, to postpone this initiative, equality-proof it, and make sure we get it right if we're going to do it at all. But Minister, the stakeholders in this area are saying it's not right. It's not right. Minister, I think that, on another note, what is missing from the bill is the issue of reversing some of the previous cuts. Strongly ask you to look at reversing the cut to the under-26s. You and your political party passed that proposal over the course of the weekend, and I look forward to supporting you in that House with that respect. A cut to the core payment for under-26s in this country. And I don't ask that to be mischievous. I'm going to give you a testimony of somebody that came into my constituency office on Monday. And I know you'll resonate with this, because I know you're connected to the front line. I know that, Kevin. I won't be that political on it. But, Minister, leaving aside the discrimination that has taken place against young people, and as we see in this bill, women, there's no kind of race, and we're not forbidden to go and exhaust whatever rights we would have under equality legislation, but there is a question of the indirect impact on the measures of previous budgets and this bill on minority groups in this country. One example would be the travelling community. Minister, as you're aware, many travellers marry young, and this has left many of them and many of their families in precarious situations. I had one of them into my office Monday of this week, an amateur boxer, 3 silver medals representing this country, 17 provincial medals representing his province, 9 national titles. He's under 26. His rent allowance was cut. He and his 3 children and his wife live with the in-laws in a 3-bedroom house. 5 adults and 7 children. That's what the cuts that have taken place to the under-26s. That's the cut that has taken place that has forced people to make sacrifices that would never and should never happen in any modern, decent society. 4 years on a waiting list. We cut their rent allowance, you cut their social protection, you force them to make decisions. That's unacceptable, Minister. Good people who represented this country at the highest level. And here we have forced these people to make these decisions. Was that equality proofed? No more than the decision to attack women in this country. I'd ask you, Minister, to suspend this initiative. Put it to one side and equality proof it. Stop using this fake language around this. The language around this has been pathetic. You wouldn't get it with the Tories, what's going on in this chamber. Protecting core social welfare payments. You have not protected core social welfare payments because your own youth wing confirmed that. It's appalling, the language that goes on with respect to the most draconian attacks that have taken place. Whether they're under 26s, whether they're lone parents, it's unacceptable. And I think it's appalling. I think it's appalling, the language that was used here this morning by the Minister, her own comments on this particular bill. Joan Burton has morphed into Enda Kenny. She's lost her touch with people. No right-minded person would proceed with this in in June and July of this year and discommode thousands of families who are currently on the edge. I'd ask you, Minister, to listen to the stakeholders. The stakeholders have spoken on this and said this is just insanity. Where are they? Where are the troops in this one? Minister, I know you to be a very hard-working person. I know you are salt of the earth. I know you know what I'm really talking about. I know you are. You see the same stuff in your own clinics. I know you to be an assiduous, hard-working deputy. That's not in dispute. But I'm asking you to do the right thing here. And the right thing here is not to attack the most vulnerable people. There's no debate. There is no debate that can equal the arguments that were set out by Flack and by Spark. Minister, I'm only asking because the kind of impact, the impact on vulnerable people can be addressed here today by you actually proceeding with some element of pause. Get into the committee, start amending this. Start amending this. In the interest of social cohesion, do not let the legacy of this government to continue attacking the most vulnerable people in society. I was appalled this morning when I looked at the Irish Times. The Irish Times now are cheerleading for tax cuts. We're going to cut the tax for the well-off. And we're going to fry and continue to attack the most vulnerable. That's appalling. Where are the Social Democrats? Where are they? Where are they? Who is protecting them? Your job was to protect them. It's a very sad day. It's a very sad day that if we can't have a debate in this House and acknowledge that we're doing something wrong here. And Minister, you know deep down, I know you do. You know deep down this is wrong. And don't let these people twist your arm to do this. Don't let these guys twist your arm to do this. This is something that you can stand up and leave a proud legacy on. But don't let these Tories twist your arm to do it. Do the right thing. You're sent into government to protect the most vulnerable people. And this is an opportunity. Think about the consequences. Think about the consequences to these families, mainly women, struggling already. I mean, Kevin, the impact onto their pocket is significant. No matter how you do the math, the impact on their pocket is significant. And it's going to leave a disdainful legacy amongst many very difficult and hard decisions the government have to make. But this is completely unnecessary. It is completely unnecessary because it doesn't add to anything in terms of progression. It doesn't add to anything at all. I mean, I hear people saying in the corridors, have Labour done a deal to sell Aer Lingus so we can reverse? Let's not politicise this. Just stand up, man up and protect these people. That's what the mandate is about. Man up and stand up to these people. Don't let this happen. It's appalling what's going on. And there's wonderful opportunity to enter here now into a process and committee to pause this down, slow this down, listen to the stakeholders, and do the right thing.
Thank you.